Welcome to Stone Club Walks and Talks, Episode 4. Today we're going to be taking you on a walk to West Penwith. We're going to walk with Christoper Morris, the film director of the film A Year in a Field. The film focuses around a standing stone called Boscawen Ros East, or the Long Stone as it's also known. We start our walk on the field boundary near to the stone. We also visit several other sites in West Penwith, discussing them as we go. It was very windy, it was very rainy, so occasionally the sound is a little bit fuzzy and rough around the edges. But we hope that you still enjoy it and stick with us. There's only the odd moment, I think. But then we retreat to Christoper's kitchen, where the sound is different again, much better. You might hear us buttering some toast, and you might hear us making a few cups of tea along the way. On our walk, alongside Christoper, we're joined by the film's producer, Denzil Monk, Stone Club co-founder, Lally MacBeth, as well as myself. And then we go back to Christoper's house, where Sarah Ball, the fine artist, is also present.
Hello, I'm Lally MacBeth. Stone Club is a place for people to congregate, to muse, and most importantly to stomp to stones. We believe the journey is as important as the destination, so come on a walk with us.
So let's begin by going into the ancient landscape of West Penwith. Christoper, a very, very familiar walk for you, I suspect, this one, after all of the days and hours you spent filming.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I filmed for about 270 days during the year when I was filming, but I'd been photographing this stone for about 6 years before that, and I didn't come every day, but I did come a lot, at least once a week, if not more, and so I've seen this field, this walk to the stone, in every single permutation of weather, season, day, night. So it is very familiar.
Driving over this morning, to meet you, I thought, well, it's not looking great, the weather. As I saw it move, hills came into focus and disappears again behind the mist and the mizzle. Not an unfamiliar sight in Cornwall, but how many of the days would you say were quite similar to this across the 12 months you were filming?
Loads, absolutely loads. And in fact, the summer was appalling. We had a really bad summer, and the crop, I remember, was battered to the ground in great parts by tremendous rainstorms that came in August. And I know the farmer was really worried about getting the crop in, but he did. But it was, it was not a great year. We had weird weather. It was intensely hot in July, but we also had incredible rainstorms. So London was flooded out. I remember they had a month's rain. So the weirdness of the weather changing, the patterns of the weather changing are redolent here. We see it because it's so exposed. We're just coming around the corner now, and we should be able to see. Oh no, because the hedge is there. But just beyond the hedge now is the view down towards where the sea is, and there's nothing between that and the stone. So the stone gets the full blast of anything that's coming.
Yeah, so exposed. And interesting to think about the hedges not being here actually though as well, because what this would have looked like, or how this would have connected with the other ancient sites around us, it's when you look at an aerial map, it's very interesting, isn't it, because they're all so interconnected and actually very close, but the enclosure of the hedges does give the impression that they're all in separate places, and you might have to drive between them, but actually they're very short walks apart, aren't they?
They are. They're all interconnected, they're all aligned. But I think the most interesting thing is, I've been trying to do this as an experiment to see, but trying to imagine and looking at the sort of the way the ground moves and has changed probably over time, but I don't think you can see the Merry Maidens from this stone.
No.
I think so. There must have been some alignment method they had, which was around, I don't know, very tall poles or smoke or something, I don't know, to align them all.
I just noticed some stones in the hedge there.
Yeah, they're massive, aren't they?
Well, and Lally was reading to me this morning on the way here about Boscawen Ros East and Boscawen Ros West, and how west is in a hedge.
Yes. It's over there somewhere.
And it does make me wonder when I see things like this, are we looking here at, some sort of other burial mound? Are we looking at other sort of significant landscape markers?
Yeah.
Or is it just the Cornish hedge, that is 200-300 years old rather than 4,000 years old?
It could be. I mean, that stone there with the ivy on the top, it goes all the way to the top of it. So that must be at least 9-10 foot of stone.
Yeah.
So either it was, a farmer get it out of the way and put it on the edge, and heap them all together, or there is something here, but who knows? There's supposed to be something in the hedge line over there, but a marker stone, but I've never found it. So it's some kind of way stone, but I've never found it. So.
So we just walked over to the hedge where Boscawen Ros West is, and again it's standing there in the hedge. It's upright, very clearly another menhir, moss all around the base, ivy tangling itself around the stone, almost lost. And Christopher, you said it's completely invisible in the summer when everything's abundant.
Yeah, it just disappears in the hedgerow and is completely covered in all that. And actually, along the tops of these hedgerows are all rabbit runs. So also you get the rabbits shooting along the top of the things. I tried filming that and failed completely.
A magical thing to witness, I imagine. A very, very difficult thing to try and capture. This thing darting along very quickly, trying to only get away from you.
Yeah. The other thing I remember, we're just going around the corner here, and there was the pheasant that you hear all the way through the film. This is where it was all the time. The amount of times I ran over here trying to film the bugger.
Yeah.
And I eventually got it in close up, but I had to leave the camera and then retreat and just wait for it to do its thing and jump into shot. But it was a cat and mouse game with the wildlife here.
Tregiffian barrow. The zoom recorder's sat on top of the curbstone that goes round, not dissimilar to a rounded Silonian entrance grave or burial mound. We're just looking at the cut mark stone, which is a replica of the stone which is now housed in the museum in Truro, but still incredible to see. It's just on the inside, almost like a second layer of protection for the tomb itself. And we were just talking about how far down and into the land the actual opening of the barrow would be. And I remember reading about how it would have gone all the way to the other side of the road where the sort of hedge line is now, which is, I don't know, how many yards are we looking at there? It's quite a distance, isn't it? It's quite a lot further. But it appears to be dissected by the road. I imagine there was quite a lot of disruption when that was first put there. But still a large monument just on a grass verge. We've got the Merry Maidens to our right as I look at the road now in the field, and I can see the outlying stone. And then to our left, the walk that we just came from, which takes us back to Boscawen Ros East. And then the pipers. Can we see the pipers? No, not quite.
No, too many trees and hedges.
Yeah, but again, the pipers now dissected from the Merry Maiden stone circle. Again, the road sort of dissects ancient sites on the inside, doesn't it? Right the way along.
It's a poor planning decision made it.
Well, it just reminded me that years ago I made a film in Iceland, and we were filming in Reykjavik, and the person we were talking to, the county planner, brought out a map which marked in Reykjavik where all the hidden folk lived, all the elf mounds, and where the dwarves and Ulinga, I seem to remember they call them Ulinga, and lived, and then planning and building was done around those elf mounds, because you couldn't disturb the elf mounds. You had to go around. So the road here is cutting through this barrow because nobody cared, I guess. Nobody understood the kind of significance of it. But I remember in Iceland, and this was maybe 20 years ago, but they had they had everything mapped, and they had elf people who actually went out to locate where these hidden folk were living.
So maybe we could hold that thought and share it with Cornwall Council, and that maybe Cornwall Council's planning could evolve, because obviously these sites are fairly well mapped and could be better mapped, and the mistakes of the past where they've been thoughtlessly destroyed. I mean, the destruction that's happened has happened.
So we're just entering the field with the Merry Maidens, just a few yards down from Tregiffian, where we were a moment ago. The gate's wide open, which is unusual. The light's catching the quartz in the stones. They look amazing from this angle, I think, always. A smaller relation to Boscawen Ros East, but beautiful and special nevertheless.
Yeah, when I was, I knew I had to film it for the film, but I was really careful when I shot here, because the problem with here is it's very exposed to all the agricultural landscapes around. So I knew if I came here on a nice, crisp, clear, sunny day, you'd see all the land around, and I didn't want that for the beginning of the film. I wanted this to be some like space, which was its own thing in its own time. So I just waited throughout the month of December.
Was that yes, of course.
For the fog to roll in, and bang on time it rolled in, as always.
Yeah.
And then waited till about 4 o'clock, so it's virtually dark, right on the edge of what my camera could shoot. And that's when I shot the stones, and they appear magical.
Oh, they're so mystical as well, the way in which it's... I mean, I absolutely love that shot in the film. It's, it's so brooding, and oh yes, we've got... Is that hollyberry?
Yeah, somebody put a holly leaf right by one of the entrance stones. And when I came here filming, over there on one of those stones was a Christian cross that had been bound and just left on the top. I might think I placed it there, but I didn't. It was just there.
So we're in from the wind and the cold. We've just walked back to Christopher's house, and it's time for tea, isn't it, I think?
Yeah, let's get some tea on. And some toast.
Oh, some toast, yeah. That'll take the chill away.
Right, there we go.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, so we just all walk back here, and it's very warm, and it's very nice to be out of the wind. It's amazing how noisy it is out there, isn't it, as well, with the winds today? It's like quite gale force.
It was, yeah. I mean, one of the reasons that I didn't shoot much sound on my film myself was entirely because of that, because my recording equipment wasn't as good as yours, and so in the end I resorted to other people helping me out with the sound recording.
Yeah, which sounded incredible.
Yeah, well, they were really good at recording sound.
Actually, I can take this sort of gonk hat off the scene.
You're recording now.
Yeah, it is absolutely a kind of, it was by accident, not by accident, but it was an accident finding the stone. I got lost one day, and there it was. And, but it's actually it's not just for me, it's also for my wife Sarah. We go all the time to see it, don't we? And
Sarah's actually making delicious toast as well for us at the moment, so we're really treated now. The hardship of the walk and the gale force winds and the elements and everything else, all of those hardships, yes, they've sort of melted like butter on the toast.
There you go. We had, but my daughter, for my 60th birthday, she made me a 1 to 8 scale model of the stone out of papier-mâché. So it's so I think it's more of a family thing now than just me.
Yeah, everyone knows.
Everybody knows. Yeah,
I'd love to see that. Edith's model.
I've got it here. I'll go.
Do you remember exactly the day that you first came across the stone? I mean, you said you stumbled across it. How long before you decided to start photographing the stone was that? Or was that the first time you also photographed the stone on that first meeting?
Oh, that's a good question. I was with my dog and it was really early in the morning. It was something about 5 and I couldn't sleep, so I went off to find the coastal path. That's what I set off to do. And then I got lost. And it took about an hour and a half to get home, and although the stone is quite close to the house, I just got completely disorientated about where I was, which field I was in. Did I photograph it? I probably didn't photograph it. I don't know, I can't remember whether I photographed that moment, but literally then once I found it had that effect on me that I went back immediately to photograph it, like for the first time. And then I just started photographing it a lot. And I can tell you when it was. It was September 2015. We arrived here in Cornwall in July 2015, and I immediately started photographing it for all the way from 2015 through to 2020, when I started filming it instead.
Did you both go and walk there as well? Did Christopher come home and say, actually, I need to show you the standing stone?
Yeah, no, we used to go quite a lot together until it became a project.
Well, in the middle of the project, when I was filming, you broke your ankle. So actually, you were housebound. So that was another reason why I sort of went off for hours on end on my own, was because you were stuck at home.
Yeah.
So.
What's the farmer's name? When did you first meet the farmer?
Roger, he's our neighbour here.
Oh, he is?
So, yeah.
Oh, so you already knew each other?
Yeah.
And you knew that was his fields already? Okay.
Once I started, when I was just taking photographs, I didn't ask his permission because it's on a footpath anyway, but or it's near a footpath. But once I started filming, I did seek his permission. I just said, look, I'm going to spend a lot of time in your field filming your stone. He never asked why, which was interesting, but he said, oh yeah, that'd be fine.
That's great. And did he have a lot of information about the stone? I guess he has his own connection with it, even if it's only a thing that he has to plough around rather than walk through. But he seemed, you described him in the film as a custodian, or certainly in Q&A, so what's his connection like with the stone, do you think, as the landowner?
Well, I think that's an interesting one. I think it might have slightly changed by the making of the film, because he certainly said to me, and his son-in-law definitely said to me, that by seeing the film it really made them think again about what the field was. It wasn't just a field, or what the Standing Stone's relationship with it, and the sort of environment and the flora and the fauna, and which, obviously I'm filming them in massive close-up and demanding the audience to look at them for a significant period of time, whereas they're just driving past in tractors all the time. So I think it offered them a different viewpoint of looking at it. But I don't know about his relationship at the beginning, but he did say to me, which I think is wrong. He said that the field is called Longstone Field because it's long and it has a stone in it, whereas Menhir in Cornish means long stone. So I think the actual reason it was called Longstone Field was because it had a menhir in it.
Yeah.
But he said it was because it was a long field and it had a stone in it.
Oh, I see.
But
Yeah, and was the generations of his family farming that land, or?
I don't think so.
No.
I think he he's the first person from his family to work that land. Yeah, I think so.
It's interesting, isn't it? You know, the unknowable we were talking about earlier on in the field around what the stone's seen and how that's changed in the field systems, how they've developed and evolved. But even in modern times, you know, the amount of people that must have known that, and even within our lifetimes, you know, in the last 2 or 3 generations as well. I mean, it's in a way it's more amazing to me that they are there and haven't been moved any time over those thousands of years. It is quite remarkable.
It is, and it's fascinating how everybody who has any sort of interaction with them will have a story or a set of thoughts about it. It's like they might not be into stones in the same way that, say, a member of Stone Club is, but there's a relationship with it and a respect for it. It's like we were talking about in the field earlier, weren't we? This kind of the reverence that hasn't always been there. You know, sometimes in the past, stones have been taken and made into hedges, made into gateposts, just destroyed or taken away. Sometimes very consciously, sometimes forced. Religious reasons, more often just out for practicality of that's the right shape and size for what the job is that I need to do for it now. But the kind of I guess there's like a sort of soft folklore that sits underneath the kind of recorded folklore, people who have a specific interest in that is quite often held with guardians of the land, farming communities. I was thinking about another Roger Green, who owns the fields down to Main Screefer. So Main Screefer is like the last of his fields there. I remember talking to him, and he was like, "Oh yeah, that's the stone with writing on it there. That's where some important person was buried there." That was kind of the story that he had, in which was kind of like he told it as a piece of received wisdom that there was somebody important was buried under that stone once upon a time, and you know that's what the story of that stone is. Rialabrand, the son of a great leader. Yeah. So you kind of there's like the written folklore, and then there's the oral tradition that continues that, which maybe gets lost or moves away, turns maiden into maidens, and all the rest of it. But everybody's got a story about the place that they carry with them.
Yeah. Generations of evolving folklore and sort of use of language as well.
Is it all right if I ask you a question? Why did you Lally start Stone Club? How did that?
Well, Denzil actually has a big part in this. Really.
That's true. It was actually.
So it's Brenda Wotton. It's Brenda's fault, isn't it?
Brenda Wotton does have it. It's true as well. Well, we were discussing when I thought Colquhoun.
There are mycelial threads that all connect the parts out of which Stone Club was grown.
I went to meet Denzil for the first time at his office in Penzance. And
after going to the Mordaunt exhibition, wasn't it?
Yeah, we'd just seen that, and we were staying at Rosemary.
And
probably in the morning for a few days.
And Denzil was meeting Florence Brown, a filmmaker who was looking at Brenda Wotton. And the meeting, the idea of meeting was just to meet and then also to discuss this film project and Brenda Wotton, because you know we all love Brenda Wotton and think those songs are amazing. It's an interesting story. But I would spot, you know, there's Amy Hale's biography of Ethel Colquhoun, and there's a Ian Cook book, or you know, there was these various amazing books around, just like recognising them all and seeing them on Denzil's bookshelf.
Markers of a similar obsession.
So we ended up talking much more about sort of artists that worked and walked around this landscape.
The way I remember it is we spent half an hour just talking at each other like uninterrupted about all the various megaliths that we've been to visit in previous weeks.
So we made plans to go out, you know, and Denzil took us to, where did we go to? It was Barrow.
We went to Basiliac, Barrow.
Basiliac. Yeah.
But also I should interject to this point, because I was still at Rosemary when you were having this meeting, sort of working away, and I was like, oh gosh, Matthew's been gone a really long time. I thought he was only going for now. And then you came back and you were like raving about how amazing Denzil was, and like you're like, oh, he was just so interesting. He did like loads of really, like lots of crossover, and So you were definitely very enthused.
Yeah, so there was always the idea of getting out
Yeah.
and meeting people that Lally and I had been discussing. It's sort of like, this is we have to remember that post-lockdown moment where you were allowed out to go and explore things further afield than your own proximity again. But people were still often very nervous about doing that, even in outdoor scenarios.
Yeah.
And certainly meeting another person might be more of a, oh gosh, there's someone else here, rather than, oh hello, isn't it great to be meeting people outside again. And we thought, well, there's a sort of sense of safety and freedom and like-minded souls, even if they come from different places, and different places, sort of geographically and ideologically. So, a stone circle can represent pre-political system, country boundaries, all of those things, and it also can be something that allows people to be letting themselves off a little bit from having to be an expert in some fields. They can be an expert, they could have that, but we thought there's such a value in a geologist being able to talk about the strata of the stone, and an archaeologist talk about the reason why they're sited there and what they know, and you might have an ecologist that will tell you about all the things that are growing around it, and you'd have someone else that could tell you all the bird names and all those things. And actually, if you had a poet and an artist, you're starting to get a really fertile mix of ways of seeing, and all of those things can feed each other, and an artist might go away with a slightly different perspective on how to paint a site based on something they just learnt that sort of went in, and vice versa. They might see a sight line that the archaeologist hadn't been looking for because it was unusual or shouldn't be there, but is. And so we thought that diversity was interesting, and then the other one was much more trivial, really. It was much more a bit like, when people are talking and being rude at a dinner and someone says, you two should get a room. So it was a bit like, you lot should just all go off and do Stone Club. It's like, we're actually here to discuss something else entirely. We thought, well, actually, it probably is.
Well, I think you came back saying, we sort of joking about Stone Club, and then I was like, oh, that's actually really good. And then I think almost, not as a joke, well, sort of as a joke, you were like, oh, make Denzil a membership card and a badge, because I had a badge maker.
So many great things start with a badge maker, don't they?
They do, all the best projects.
Yeah.
And so my mum became member number 1, and then you're member number 2, Denzil. And we're jointly members number 00.
Like 007, but
Yeah.
it was great, wasn't it? Because we went to Basiliac Barrow, which is up near Ding Dong, and then walked from there. So it started with the procession, walked from there to Lanyon Coit. So again, Lanyon Coit and Basiliac I only found maybe 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Lanyon Coit I've been to my whole life, and that whole area around Ding Dong, the moors there, and Boscawen Stone Circle was a really special place. But I'd never walked from Basiliac to Lanyon. I'd only ever come to Lanyon from the road side. And it was amazing, because when you go down into the valley and then come up, then suddenly Lanyon Coit, and it's reconstructed, it's not in its original aspect, but then Lanyon Coit on the landscape, on the skyline there, just looks incredible. And it was, so that was a...
You got a totally different perspective, really, because I'd never done that way either. I'd only ever come to Lanyon Coit from the road, and I think, it was sort of that sense of adventure that we all were having it for the first time.
It's such an iconic photograph space, but to see it from a slightly different perspective than the usual was really exciting. And then I got given a badge and a membership
did we
card.
give it to you at the end?
When we walked back to the car, he said, but just before we head off,
because I think we discussed it. We were like, should we give it to him at the beginning? And then we thought, no, at the end it's got to be...
I was so excited. I was like a little boy, very excited to get his club membership in the post.
Yeah.
So what is the membership members now?
It's about 3,000 members. Yeah. It's not dissimilar though to your getting lost on the dog walk. It's that same excitement. When you're out there and you see something. And Lanyon Coit was very much like, there's Lanyon Coit, and we can see it from here. I wonder if there's a bog or a stream or a fence or something that prohibits that route now, if not then. So you're sort of heading there just hoping. You don't really know if you'll make it, all the way. You might have to turn back round, get in the car and drive round anyway. But I love those things, making those connections on foot. And, I think that's...
It was a good starting point, I think, wasn't it? In terms of how we approach most things in Stone Club. In that kind of sense of, like, we might not know the end or how we're going to get to the end exactly, but... It's kind of about that journey or that adventure, and spending time with people.
And what that did also was open up the idea and the possibility of community sharing. So, you know, Denzil's reflection on that day rather than ours, Denzil's photographs and Denzil's notes and those kind of things then being something that we could highlight and say, here's somebody, you know, who's basically grown up here their entire life and has generations of family from here, sees the landscape in this way and has this particular perspective, and that's really interesting. And it's his experience. But then, you know, something like A Year in a Field in a way is like the ultimate expression of those Your Stones posts. You know, people write in members and they go, here are 3 or 4 photographs of the site, and here's what I did, and here's what the weather was like, and here's the person I went with, and this is how it felt. And the film does that. You know, it's a perfect example of connecting with an ancient site, but then actually all of the things that it had to teach you, because it's sort of like the greatest teacher. By, you know, again, I've heard you talk about this in Q&As, but for the sake of this conversation at least, you know, when you talk about the flow of the year from the winter solstice, and then all of a sudden it dawns on you that you're making a film about the environmental movement and the environment, and that particular environment is a microcosm of the global picture. It's interesting that Standing Stone can be a teacher.
Yeah, and I'm going to use that word again. It's a catalyst. I've got it the right way around this time. But yeah, it is. It was. It was all those things. I should just say I forget the exact number, but I'm 470 something member of Stone Club. So you know,
we did have someone write to us actually and ask if they could have a lower number if one ever came up, and I thought, oh gosh, that's quite morbid. I don't really.
We don't want a second marketplace for Stone Club membership
secondary
numbers.
market. Well, when I did the tour with the film, quite a few Stone Club members came to the screenings, which was and that was the first. What number you? And it was 400. Oh, you've done well. Under 1,000. Wow. Yeah.
It's really interesting. You must have had this a lot in the Q&A. I'm curious about it too, but the level of thought it's provoked. You know, we had Kenny, archaeologist, the other day, who'd written that, you know, he wrote to me, said it's not uncritical, you know, I went to see the film and you know, I wonder whether we have pushed things too far and whether or not, you know, whatever COP it was, you know, 26 in the case of this film, but it's like, you know, we've known these things. You know, the book in fact, A Year in the Life of a Field, was that 1980? 81. You know, so I think for some people it's very jading over decades to be working in this area and to see further degradation and decline in climate. But the film felt like a bit of a reset for me in that it really did engage people again to think about this, take the time to read about it. You fielded a lot of difficult questions on that Q&A tour, didn't you? I'm sure.
Yeah. They weren't that difficult to answer because I think they were things that I addressed in the film or I had thought about through the process of making the film, I guess.
How do we solve climate change? There were
a few. There were a few difficult questions like, Chris, how do we solve climate change? How do we solve it all? Yes, but those are questions you can't answer. So that's all right. No, what really came across was the consistency between the questions in. Across, so I've probably done 20-25 Q&As now, and the consistency of the types of questions that came about. So to me that says that there is a singular kind of thinking that people are having problems with, and the film raises questions against that singular kind of thing, and it leads to a certain set of questions. So I think that was kind of interesting. People were engaging with.
So you just come back from your most recent Q&A session as part of the Picture House circuit for World Soil Day. Was there anything about that framing of the film was there anything specific that came out in that Q&A?
That was so I went to Bath, and the event was hosted by Transition Bath, and they're a group who are working in Bath around many of the questions that the film raises. But what was great was that it wasn't just me on the stage. You know, for the Q&A there was another filmmaker, James Lavelle, and Rosie Jones, who is a clinical psychologist. She was on the stage, and her interest is working with anxiety around climate and taking people out in very much. She said my film was was almost exactly what she does.
Yeah.
Which is take people out into the environment and ask for them to attend to what is in front of them in a very small way for a period of time, which is really what the film kind of is about, I guess, or is what happened to me. So it was that was a brilliant talk, and James Lavelle was very interesting. He's made lots of films over the years of out and about around the world doing incredible things with hurricanes and adventure filmmaking, if you like. And then he's now changed his view around what he should be making, and he's living on a houseboat between Bath and Bristol, and is making films just in his locality, around his locale. So that was a really interesting discussion, and it was nice because there was another film coming in after us, and instead of the discussion just stopping, we all went to the pub and carried on, and there must have been 80 people in the cinema coming to see the film midweek. It was pouring with rain, which was really heartening. There was one great bit though, which was when there's a scene in the film where a slug, a very translucent slug, climbs up the stone, and I filmed it over about a 6-hour period as it went up the stone. In the film it's about 2 or 3 minutes, but in the screen next door, Napoleon, the film was playing, and as the slug was going up, the Battle of Austerlitz was playing in the screen next door, and all you could hear through the cinema was but of course nobody in the cinema that I was in knew that wasn't part of the film, and it was brilliant. It really enhanced that whole scene, so I might go back and redub it with a few sort of Austerlitz type explosions going on in the thing. But the two films were bleeding across the
I wonder if there's somebody out there now that's thinking, I never knew that if you mic'd the slug
there was a distant booming.
Aren't they fascinating creatures? I wonder how they do it.
But it was really good of Picture House to do a green screen event, so an environmental documentary, and because it played in 26 cinemas simultaneously across the country, which is fantastic.
For United Nations World Soil Day.
Exactly. And which is also brings it right back to the beginning of the film, because one of the inspirations for the film was a book called A Year in the Life of a Field, which you mentioned earlier, by Michael Allaby, who wrote it in 1981 about a Cornish field near Bodmin. But he was one of the founders of the Soil Association, and he's a proper ecologist, and very interesting guy. He's written lots and lots of books over the years, a lot for children as well, about the environment and stuff. But A Year in the Life of a Field it was a seminal kind of like thing for me to read, because it made it obvious what I should be doing in the field with this stone, really. But so it all linked up nicely, that the soil was a linking thing in that.
Absolutely.
There's more toast to dig in.
Well, the other thing that I was thinking about then was the cycles, these annual cycles, and this 3-year cycle that that we're just coming towards the conclusion of. 2020 winter solstice to 2021, capturing all of that, and then 2022 we watched the film for the first time in the New Lynn Film House, and that was an amazing evening. I remember just being like, wow, on the winter solstice in New Lynn, watching this film that had been made over that 12, and the significance of the solstice and the shortest stay, the fact that the project worked between those two, and then the third one was the revealing of it to the world. And now we're heading into 2023's winter solstice, and we know that the film's going to play again all over the country, and have significant screening in London. It's
well, the big thing is for the winter solstice this year, it's going to go on streaming services as well across the country, so everybody can watch it. Hopefully, who would like to watch it? It's not compulsory, but so it's a real synergy. Started 2020. That's right. Winter solstice finished. Winter solstice 2021, edited in that year, and then screened to you guys. And then now another year on, another winter solstice is there. So God knows what will happen for the next winter solstice.
Well, it's I think on both counts it's fantastic that there's the streaming services, and we already know that we've got bookings for next year at the film festivals and other cinemas that want to screen it, and so you've sort of got the official run, but then you have this life that now just, I think, builds organically, and it's really great as well, because we've had lots of members say, when will I be able to watch it online? I know it's on, Curzon Henson, or more broadly on platforms, because everyone uses different things, so many of them out there. But also people that struggle to physically get to cinemas, and also people that might psychologically not be very comfortable in a cinema. Going back to what we talked about with the post-pandemic, we had lots of people that really wanted to come to Stone Club events, but were nervous about being in class.
I had a message through the website a few days ago, actually, after the World Tour Day screenings, from somebody who went to one of those screenings, said absolutely loved the film. Is there any way that their disabled parents can watch it? So it was great to be able to say yes, they'll be able to watch it.
I think it's fantastic because there's so many options. If smaller film festivals and community events want to screen, then you can watch it with other people and have that discussion and debate, and and where it's suitable, have a Q&A with somebody involved, or with you, Chris, indeed,
Well, on that note, it's worth saying, as well as it being available for people to watch at home on streaming services, it's also available now, about to be available, it is available now for any community cinema that wants to programme it. So there's a Blu-ray with hard of hearing subtitles that's being made at the moment. So from next year, really, anybody who wants to screen it, either as a community cinema event or as a talking point, to use it as a stimulus for a discussion about things, which would be really happy to. I was
contacted by an academic who teaches at Bangor University, and she'd like to screen it for her students. Absolutely no problem. Anybody wants to watch it, we'll endeavour to make it happen.
Yeah, because you always want your films to be seen by an audience, and there's something gratifying about that. But when you hear about the conversations that are stimulated by that's a deeper sense of satisfaction. Do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm always, to be honest, the whole thing has been so unexpected and rather humbling, really. And I still can't believe that any thoughts that I had resonate with anybody else. They're just my thoughts, and then you put them into a film, and then the fact that it's had some life is amazing. It's brilliant.
Well, it's continuing. It is interesting in that we've been talking about this film, all of us, on various outlets, social media, websites, all the rest of it. The very morning after the Picture House screenings happened all over the country, we had a message from someone saying, just noticed this, when's it going to be in a cinema? And the fact is that it takes so long sometimes for, there's all the algorithms to work with and everything else, but people are, they'll discover it and go, God, this looks amazing. It's like, oh no, you missed it by one day, being close to you, but actually don't worry, because the screenings seem to be still coming in thick and fast. Half a dozen here or another few there, and it's good. And I do think it's a film that has the ability to talk to people on so many different levels, because there is a very strong narrative there about the planet and about personal agency in relation to environmentalism. It's also a really fascinating film about a standing stone and about Cornwall and about a relationship between a human being and the other than human. So there's all these different things as well, and I think it is possible to watch that film and really be interested in any one of those subjects, maybe and hopefully all of them. But it's not reliant upon wanting to be any one of those things, I don't think. I think it just works very beautifully as a film.
Yeah, well, thank you. I mean, the reason that people are only just getting to hear about it, despite us doing our level best to get it out there, is that there was no marketing budget. So unlike Barbie,
unlike Barbieheimer, couldn't quite compete.
We couldn't really compete on that level.
But word of mouth is a powerful thing, and it's a more organic and it's a slower process. But that kind of feels like it's the right thing
for the film.
It is, And our distributor, Anti-World's release in Andy Stark's, have been fantastic in getting it out to cinemas and beyond, and really sort of nurturing that journey of it.
Yeah,
as indeed at Stone Club, you know.
Well, I think a lot of individuals too. I mean, we've seen a lot of people sharing things. We've seen a lot of very excited, you know, sort of Instagram stories and tweets and things from people. There's lots after Pitch House, but we've seen so many as well across those different platforms where people would tag a picture of you at Q&A, Chris, or they would be just talking about how they'd seen this film and it really surprised them, it took them aback, you know, they weren't quite sure what to expect, and yeah, it's just been really engaging, I think. It gives me a lot of hope, actually. We probably get quite a divide with people that are optimistic and pessimistic about the overall, you know, future. For
state of humanity and our place on this in the universe.
And I think, you know, the environmental, the green movement struggles with that also. You know, we only had to look at sort of tipping point things again, and you know, over the decades you see these things and you look at the amount of time there is left to really turn things around. So I understand it when people say, I think that's a very optimistic future that you know you're hoping for, but what else have we got? You know, otherwise it's just despondency and it's all over. And you know, it's great to have art. It's great to have art that can actually screen in the cinema and to show people that there are people that do believe in hope, and people that do believe that we have the ability to change things.
And one symbol from the film that really epitomises that is that slug climbing the stone. That's an Herculean.
The sounds of war.
to the sounds of war. Yeah.
Yeah, that slug. It doesn't, you know, that slug, or at least
that
its
beautiful translucent slug.
Yeah. What a habitat. I mean, I'd quite like to live
on a standing stone.
You basically do.
I think that might be the end.
Thanks for listening to Stone Club Walks and Talks. You can find us in all the usual places, Instagram, Twitter, and of course our website, stoneclub.rocks. And don't forget to like and share the podcast. We'll be back soon with another walk and another talk. Goodbye.